Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into cloud security.
Yeah, digging deep.
And you're here because you want that core knowledge, right? The essential stuff, but, without wading through tons of documentation.
Exactly.
So think of this as kind of your shortcut to understanding the really crucial cloud security principles. We're using SC-100 practice exam questions as our base.
Which are great sources, actually.
Yeah.
Really concentrated knowledge.
Totally. So our mission today is basically to pull out the core insights from these questions and their explanations.
Right. Not just the answers, but the thinking behind them. Getting to the fundamentals, but efficiently.
Okay, let's jump in. First question gets right to a cornerstone. Zero trust. The question asks, your organization is adopting a zero trust model. Which principle best aligns with this strategy? And the answer is assume breach and verify explicitly.
Okay, assume breach. Sounds a bit scary, maybe?
It does sound a bit alarming, yeah, but it's actually a really practical way to think about security now.
It really is. I mean, zero trust, it kind of flips the old models, doesn't it? The old way was like, build a big wall, trust everything inside.
Right, the castle and moat idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Zero trust says, nope, assume the bad guys might already be inside, trust nothing, verify everything, every single access request.
Inside, outside, doesn't matter where it's coming from.
Doesn't matter. Because that traditional perimeter is just not what it used to be. So porous now with cloud, remote work.
So it's like trust but verify on steroids almost. Always assume someone could be an attacker, so that verification has to be explicit, continuous.
That's the core of it. It's not paranoia, it's just realistic.
Right.
And the verify explicitly part, well, that's the action, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the rigorous authentication, the authorization checks every time.
So things like multi-factor authentication.
Definitely MFA.
Yeah.
Device health checks, least privilege, only giving the absolute minimum permissions needed and only for as long as needed. That's the foundation.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to the next area. This one's about managing security across different places. Cloud, on-prem.
The hybrid challenge, yeah.
The question, you are designing a strategy to centralize incident detection and response across cloud and on-prem environments. Which tool should you choose? Answer, Microsoft Sentinel.
Ah, Sentinel. Yeah, this is a big one for anyone dealing with that hybrid or even multi-cloud complexity.
So what is Sentinel exactly?
Well, it's what we call a cloud-native SIEM and SOAR solution.
SIEM and SOAR. Break that down a bit.
Okay, SIEM is security information and event management. Think of it like your security control room, gathering all the logs and alerts the clues from everywhere. Azure, AWS, your own servers, other security tools.
So it pulls everything together.
Pulls it all together. And SOAR is security orchestration, automation, and response. That's the part that helps you react, often automatically.
So it's not just a big bucket for logs then. It does stuff with the data.
Exactly. That's key. It uses smart analytics, machine learning even, to find threats you might otherwise miss. And the SOR bit lets you set up automated responses.
Like what?
Like if it sees a dodgy login, maybe it automatically blocks the user account or starts an investigation workflow. It gives you that single pane of glass everyone talks about.
Which sounds incredibly useful for managing all that complexity.
It really streamlines things. Improves reaction time too.
Okay, next question. This one's about data. Your company needs to automatically classify and protect sensitive information in emails and documents. Which solution should you implement? Answer, Microsoft Purview Information Protection.
Right, data governance. Knowing what data you have and making sure it's treated properly.
And Purview helps automate that.
That's the beauty of it, yeah. You define these things called sensitivity labels. Think of them like digital tags, confidential, public, whatever you need.
Okay.
And these labels have rules built in. You can apply them manually or set it up so the system applies them automatically if it finds certain keywords, for example.
And once a label is on, say, a highly confidential document, what happens?
Well, the label triggers protection. That could mean encryption, strict permissions, saying who can open it, maybe watermarks, or even stopping it being copied or emailed outside the company. And crucially, that protection travels with the data. Doesn't matter if it's emailed, saved to a USB stick, put in the cloud, the label and its rules stick.
So it helps stop accidental leaks, basically, less reliance on people remembering to do the right thing every time.
Exactly. Consistency and less human error. Hugely important.
Makes sense. All right, shifting gears slightly, admin privileges. The question, which solution allows just-in-time privileged access and access reviews for admin roles? The answer is Microsoft Entra Privileged Identity Management,
PEM.
PM, yeah. Bit of a mouthful, but super important.
Why is that?
Well, think about admin accounts. They have the keys to the kingdom, right? If one of those gets compromised,
Right.
it's bad news. Really bad.
Okay.
So PM tackles this mainly through just-in-time access, or JIT, instead of someone always having admin rights. They only get them when they need them.
Exactly. They have to request elevation for a specific task, and it's only granted for a limited time.
Yeah.
Like checking out the master key for an hour, then you have to give it back.
Okay, like a temporary security pass, not permanent access.
Precisely. And PM often adds approval steps too, so maybe a manager has to okay the request.
Another check.
And it also pushes for regular access reviews. Basically, making you check periodically, does this person still need this privileged role? It stops that buildup of excess permissions over time.
Which must be a common vulnerability, right? People collecting powerful access they no longer need.
The very common one, yeah.
Yeah.
PM really helps lock that down.
Good stuff. Okay, next, let's look at development. DevOps. Your DevOps team needs visibility into security risks in their GitHub repositories. What should you recommend? Answer: Microsoft Defender for DevOps.
Yeah, bringing security into the dev process itself. Shift left, as they call it.
Shift left, meaning earlier in the process.
Exactly. Not waiting until the end to bolt security on, but building it in from the start. Defender for DevOps helps do that by scanning code repositories, GitHub, Azure DevOps.
And what's it looking for?
Things like secrets accidentally left in the code, passwords, API keys. You'd be surprised what turns up.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I bet.
And also misconfigurations in, say, infrastructure as code files. Things that could create vulnerabilities when deployed.
So it's like finding flaws in the blueprints before the building goes up.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Catching things early when they're much easier and cheaper to fix. It's all about being proactive.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, back to identity. You want to detect risky sign-in behavior and enforce conditional access policies based on that risk. What tool should you use? Answer: Microsoft Entra ID protection.
Right. This ties into what we were saying about verification. Knowing who is logging in and is that login normal or suspicious.
How does it know if it's suspicious?
Well, this is where the smarts come in. It uses machine learning, analyzing loads of signals. Is the login from a weird location for this user? A device they've never used? Is the pattern just off compared to their usual activity?
Okay, so it builds a baseline and looks for deviations.
Kind of, yeah. It assesses a risk score for the sign-in.
And if it decides a sign-in is risky, then what?
That's where it links beautifully with conditional access policies. Based on the risk level, low, medium, high to funds, you can trigger actions automatically.
Like forcing MFA.
Exactly. Maybe a medium risk sign-in triggers an MFA prompt they wouldn't normally get. A high-risk one. Maybe it gets blocked outright.
So it adapts the security based on the real-time risk.
Precisely. Stronger protection when needed, less friction for users when things look normal. It's a really intelligent approach.
Very neat. Okay, zooming out a bit now. The overall security health picture. Question: which service provides security score recommendations and threat protection across Azure and hybrid environments? Answer: Microsoft Defender for Cloud.
Defender for Cloud. Yeah, think of this as your main dashboard for security posture.
Security posture.
Basically, how healthy is your security setup? Defender for Cloud gives you a secure score, a number reflecting how well you're following best practices.
And it tells you how to improve the score.
Yes, it gives you prioritized recommendations. Things like you should enable MFA for these admin accounts or patch these vulnerable servers. Practical steps.
And the question mentioned hybrid environments, so it's not just for Azure.
Correct. That's a key point. It can extend its view and protection to your servers on premises, even into other clouds like AWS or GCP. Gives you that unified view.
Okay.
And it's not just about posture and recommendations. It also actively detects threats, like attacks happening right now, and helps you respond. Kind of like a security advisor and watchdog rolled into one.
Got it. Advisor and watchdog. I like it. Okay, next one is about protecting data everywhere. What combination would you use to secure data at rest and in transit? The answer given is Azure TLS and Microsoft Information Protection labels.
Right, emphasizing that layered approach again. Data needs protection wherever it is, whatever it's doing.
So TLS, that's for data that's moving.
Exactly. Transport layer security. That's the encryption that happens when data is traveling across the network. Like when your browser connects to a secure website or apps talk to each other, stops eavesdropping while it's in transit.
And the information protection labels, that's the other part of the answer. That handles it when it's not moving.
Precisely. That's data at rest. As we discussed with Purview, those labels apply classification and protection encryption, access controls to the data itself wherever it's stored. Documents, emails, databases.
So you need both.
You really do for comprehensive protection. Secure the journey with TLS, secure the destination, and the file itself with information protection, end-to-end security.
Makes total sense. Secure the movement, secure the storage. Okay, nearly there. Second to last. Automation and CTOPS.
Well,
Your security team needs to automate the response to high-severity incidents in Microsoft Sentinel. What should they use? Answer: playbooks.
playbooks. Yeah, these are game changers for busy security teams.
Why is that?
Because when a really serious alert fires, speed is critical. Playbooks let you define automated sequences of actions that kick off immediately when Sentinel detects certain types of incidents.
And these are built on, what was it?
They're built using Azure Logic apps, so you can string together actions across different tools.
Can you give an example? Like, what would a playbook do?
Sure. Let's say Sentinel detects malware communicating from a server. A playbook could trigger automatically to say, isolate that server from the network using network controls.
Okay.
Block the malicious IP address it was talking to at the firewall.
Right.
Send a high-priority alert to the security team on Teams or Slack. And maybe even create a ticket in your service desk system, all happening in seconds or minutes.
Wow. Without a human having to manually click through all those steps.
Exactly. Consistency, speed, it drastically cuts down response time and potential damage.
That sounds incredibly powerful. Okay, final question. This one is about keeping things consistent, compliant. Which solution allows you to define and enforce compliance rules across Azure resources? The answer: Azure Policy.
Azure Policy. Yep. Absolutely fundamental for governance, especially as you scale up in the cloud.
So it's about setting rules.
Pretty much. Think of them as guardrails for your Azure environment. You define rules about how resources should be configured to meet your security standards or compliance needs.
What kind of rules are we talking about?
All sorts. You could have a policy that says all storage accounts must have encryption enabled, or maybe one that says virtual machines can only be deployed in certain regions, or that specific tags must be applied to resources for cost tracking.
And what happens if someone tries to break a rule?
Well, depending on how you set up the policy, it can either just log the non-compliance for you to fix later, or it can actually deny the action. So it could prevent someone from creating a VM that doesn't meet the encryption standard, for instance.
So it enforces consistency, stops configuration drift and mistakes.
Exactly. It helps maintain that baseline of security and compliance across the board, essential for good governance.
All these foundational pieces we've touched on. Here's a final thought to chew on. Look at your own world, your own context, just picking one thing. What's one immediate area where applying even just a bit of what we've discussed could give you the biggest security uplift? Where could it make the most difference for your organization right now?
Good question to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. Maybe explore one of these areas a bit deeper. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.